Ever since that Disney took over the Star Wars license a few years back, they've finally started to dabble around in all kinds of different games and genres, from third-person action titles to now racing games and even turn-based strategy shooters of XCOM likes with Star Wars Zero Company. Today, we've got a very different video game getting made, and there's some kind of stuff out there that Disney, just because they are the family-friendly branding name that everybody knows them as, that there's just some stuff they can't make. So this is a kind of game that Disney would just never put their hands on, they would never touch. It's a genre that can be just a little bit too hardcore with some very non-family friendly ideas behind it. So you gotta leave it up to the fans to go ahead and make this kind of thing. There's a very long history of video games getting overhaul mods to completely change the game into a Star Wars theme. They always seem to be some of the most popular overhaul mods out of any of the games that you can think of. Recently, the two that kind of pop into my head on the mainstream the most is Star Wars Genesis for Starfield and just the Star Wars overhaul mod for X4. Both massive undertakings, both incredibly popular. People want Star Wars in just about every single genre that you can think of. And well, today's topic is kind of no different with the re-release of Star Wars Galactic Contention for Squad. Squad a little while ago updated its engine over to Unreal Engine 5, knocking out all of the mod support for that kind of time period. If you do an engine upgrade that big, you're gonna break stuff majorly. So Star Wars Galactic Contention has been out of the spotlight, out of the world for about a year and a half now, which is pretty brutal because I was just getting into this mod around like February of 2025, and it is now August of 2026. So it has been a very long time in the making for this thing to come back, and I'm really sad that it took me that long to finally get into that mod because I was having a blast and then gone, destroyed without a single whisper of a notice. It was taken offline because the mod is so extensive, changes so much about Squad, that there wasn't anything to save. It all had to get pretty much be rebuilt from the ground up by a very tiny little team of people to go ahead and make it. And well, it's back. It's still got its bugs, but it's better than what it was and better than what I remember. The lighting engine overhauls to the gameplay have completely changed how Galactic Contention looks. Unreal Engine 5's update for Squad has been kind of contentious. There's been a lot of like performance reductions that come along with that thing. Although when I first tried out Unreal Engine 5, things were not so good. They kind of feel like they're in a little bit of a better spot now. So Squad's Unreal Engine 5 performance has kind of been, I wouldn't say perfect. It's still a harder game to run than it was previously when it was running on top of Unreal Engine 4, but things have definitely stabilized to the point where it's a lot more playable than it was then. As a Star Wars fan, I've always wanted to have some of the experiences that Galactic Contention allows you to do. They're very, very small, very mundane things. Stuff that like doesn't seem all that complicated on paper. Like, I've been in gunfights, I've been in blaster fights with clones and droids before. I've shot up locations on Kamino, I've been on Kashyyyk, I've been on Hoth, I've been on Geonosis. There's plenty of games that have allowed these moments to breathe. But it's those moments of like walking through a trench sequence after getting dropped off by a giant on-land ship where you're walking through with a bunch of clones and ducking and watching gunfire and cover go off above you, or that quiet moment of when you're in the LAT gunship looking down over the sea and trees that you're just like flying over, and knowing that like this is a real game element, that there are people controlling the flight path of this thing. At any moment you could get shot down and the entire adventure just ends. It's a mod that like brings those immersive quiet moments of Star Wars to life before all of the crazy blaster bolts start flying. It just does those things that other games just kind of little bit hint at, but don't actually give you the full weight because you know that there's actually going to be consequences to the things that are happening next. It's amazing for bringing on all of those small details. Now, I won't lie, it definitely feels like something that is a mod. It is not the most polished experience in the world. I've had a couple of instances of just walking face first in completely invisible assets, or my character glitching over other objects that seemingly just don't exist but kind of do exist, or getting stuck on things that just reasonably I wouldn't expect to get stuck on. When the mod hits, it hits. There's been so much work and attention to detail put into the sound design of the weapons, the character models, and the locations themselves. All of them have been crafted with this like idea of past games in mind, where you can see heavy inspirations from the Star Wars Battlefront series to the sound effects taken from things like Star Wars Republic Commando, taking stuff from the expanded universe, where tell that this group of people like really care about the era of the Clone Wars, and it feels like that. It feels like people saw stuff and went, this would work great in a game, or I need something from the Star Wars universe, and where many mods and many games of the past even just invent brand new vehicles to take the spot, or invent new characters to go ahead and be plopped right in between as a character archetype or a trooper class. None of that is happening here. Everything is inspired off of all of the expanded universe that we've all been accustomed to over the past couple of years. Even with Disney rewriting history, they're just pulling the whole thing. And so it feels like a fan's love letter. It feels like a fan's dream. If they could get the polish of this up a little bit better over time, there's just going to be nothing else like it. It's not going to be Star Wars Battlefront 3. So many people are going to make the fucking title that this is Star Wars Battlefront 3. I can't believe that modders are making Star Wars Battlefront 3. No. It's not Star Wars Battlefront 3. Star Wars Battlefront 3 would be a lot more slimmed down of an experience. It'd be way more casual. I wouldn't have to talk to my teammates this much. There wouldn't be this much banter between comms. Wouldn't be walking sometimes miles through the desert with just nothing but a blaster in my hand to kill some Tuskens who are probably trying to overtake a different position than me. It plays like a slightly more sped up version of Squad, but with Star Wars. Whereas Star Wars Battlefront 3 is going to be crazy cinematic, have an insane amount of high production value events, tons of characters, tons of classes, just tons of heroes. It would be a completely different game. The one caveat that I really have to put here is that if you're not that much of a fan of Squad gameplay in general, you might actually like this, because aspects of the game are sped up. The mod is not nearly as punishing as Squad would be. You can actually jump off of buildings and not take an insane amount of damage for falling. Your stamina bar doesn't drain nearly as quickly for sprinting. Your sprint to fire times are about the same amount, so if you're trying to like run and gun a conflict, you're probably going to eat shit. It would be in your best interest to approach combat slowly. I think you might also sprint faster. Don't quote me on that. The game does play a lot more casually than it would, but it does support all of the milsim and extensive sandbox elements that Squad has that gives Galactic Contention its weight. And arguably, I think that's a great thing. I think having those crazy Squad-like moments help really facilitate some stuff that makes it something super special. So have you been playing any of the Galactic Contention? Is there a game that you think deserves a crazy Star Wars overhaul mod? Is there a Star Wars game out there that you wish Disney would make in a genre they haven't done already? I'm crazy excited for Galactic Racer. Like crazy excited for Galactic Racer. I've been wanting a spiritual successor to Star Wars Racer forever. And so the fact that we're actually getting one with modern graphics and pod racing is going to look as realistic as it does is an unbelievable match made in heaven. I can't wait for that. I'm not super excited about Zero Company, but I'm willing to try it if there's ever a demo available. Maybe I'll have to wait for some other people to get their hands on it. But Galactic Contention is one of those kinds of Star Wars games that I've always wished that Disney would do. There really is no guarantee that Disney would ever want to take a dive on something like this because, like, dude, the voice comms, you just get strangers, and we've all been in Call of Duty lobbies. We all know what the fuck strangers are going to start doing when they get an open microphone. Sometimes people are going to say some shit that is not very family friendly, and Disney would not play well nicely with the idea of anybody can be interacting with a franchise they are trying to sell your kids. So have fun with Galactic Contention. It's a completely free mod that you can run on a video game that Disney has nothing to do with. So have fun with that experience. This kind of thing is going to have to stay over in the community's hands, and honestly I think they're doing a great job. Hats off to the Galactic Contention mod team. Thank you so much for putting the work in to make this kind of experience real. I love all of the references that you guys have been throwing into place, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks.